Professor Charles, thank you for joining us today. I've got a couple of questions for you, and I'm fascinated to hear your replies. So you have been with EDCTP since its very inception. You led the African office, you were Executive Director for nearly a decade. Could you tell us why EDCTP1 was so necessary to the research community at that time? And what was it like practicing before EDCTP1? What chief issues was it set up to solve at the time?
Yeah, Helen, EDCTP was established specifically to make sure that North-South research is done in an equitable manner. Prior to the advent of the EDCTP, very often experts, scientists from the North used to come to Africa to do research and go. What we then called parachutist researchers. Practical individuals will come, collect samples, live with the samples, and go to analyze in the North and write up papers in the North. Then came EDCTP with the idea that, no, this is not right. I mean, if we're going to have a North-South research, it should be done in equal partnerships. But equal partnerships, of course, was very difficult because the Northern partners were more equipped in terms of capacity, in terms of funding, and quite often will have an idea, I want to do this, and then come to South, find a partner who is really a recipient rather than an equal participant in the research. So this is what, that was one of the things that EDCTP, right from the beginning set out to correct. That the partnership should be genuinely equal, which means the Southern partner should have the same capacity as the Northern partner. When it comes to do a collaborative work, they should be involved right from the beginning in designing the research project, in doing the research project, in analysis, and the final publication. But all along, also, the other ones will know where are the areas that require, what are the priority areas that require research, since they know the disease burden of Africa more than the Northern partners.
Thank you, Prof. Eusebio.
Yes, thank you, Helen. Professor Charles, this is always a pleasure to talk with you. And going to the discussion today, I mean, the EDCTP has been a long way life of investigators and partnership from the North Africa. For us as a researchers at that time, I mean, the curiosity was always around what could be the principle that could be guiding the EDCTP to go through all these challenges. Second, what could be the perception from the funders, specifically for the North, as you mentioned, to investing in research and specifically research in Africa, because, you know, the investment in research is investing in development. So do they think that they are really investing to develop Africa in science?
Yeah, that's a problem because, I mean, people funding research wanted value for money. And the quickest way of doing that is to go for efficiency, to go for excellence. In the past, what used to happen is that, okay, a center like yours, Manisa, which was very good, was the one that will receive funding because they are likely to be able to do the work correctly and properly to get good results. In other words, even if an area where there is disease, but there is poor capacity, no research will take place there. In other words, as I said earlier on, capacity building was not thought to be cost effective. It was not thought to be sexy, the right thing to do. So that is one of the problems that, and to go to the other extreme, even the ethics and regulatory environment, where it was poor, weak, or non-existent, funders wouldn't go to do research there. They will want to go to do research where they can be sure that the ethics committee will be able to do the oversight. And unfortunately, this was the case in many parts of Africa. There was not only poor regulatory and ethics committee, but poor infrastructure, as well as ill-equipped scientists themselves. So this is the problem, that funding used to go to where there is always good infrastructure And where there was poor infrastructure, nothing was done.
Yeah, Helen, you want to go ahead, please?
Yeah, actually, that's a really important and interesting point, because the EDCTP2 that has supported both the PAMAfrica Consortium and the SINDOFO has built in capacity development for the research centres and for the emerging scientists who are associated with those research centres to be able to deliver the clinical trials that are within those particular grants. So it's an amazing opportunity, as you say, to not just straight away automatically give the funding to a centre that's already equipped and able to do it. It allows more infrastructure to be built, more training to take place. If you take, for example, the PAMAfrica Consortium, there are 3 different clinical trials within that. And we have 5 different African partners, all of whom are benefiting from research capability strengthening through PhDs, through MScs. We have some workshop style trainings that are taking place both online and face-to-face. So the idea is that after the consortium trials are finished, that there will be, I guess, a legacy of highly trained individuals to be able to attract and benefit from further research going forwards. So that's something that we'll hear a bit more about later on in this this session today. But I just wanted to make the point that these initiatives are underway to focus on the infrastructure and the training of individuals and whole teams.
Excellent, Helen. In fact, you've reminded me the whole concept of EDCTP is that when that research is done and the results are out, that capacity which is being built, hopefully to be able to not only analyze, but also make sure that if there's any policy changes, there are people who are capable, there is a leadership which are capable of take them to the next stage, to implement them to the access level. And not only that, when the research is finished, the capacity left behind is able to plan for new research. And quite often that, and we saw this example, for instance, during Ebola and COVID outbreaks. Although the aim of EDCTP was to strengthen capacity against HIV, TB, and malaria, but that capacity, I mean, somebody who was trained in immunology, somebody who was trained in microbiology or statistics and data management will be able to carry out other research for their country. It was very evident during Ebola and COVID that there were strong research base, a group of scientists who were able to adapt and carry out activities. And similarly to the other endemic diseases like chronic diarrhea diseases, like outbreaks of other diseases besides the traditional diseases supported by EDCTP, those individuals will be able to do that in their country. And I think that is the most important. And of course, sustainability. If you've got a group of individuals who are working together, you leave a base which can, it is some sort of a critical mass of scientists working on their own problems. Which reminds me another thing, that what EDCTP has been doing right from the beginning is to foster South-South partnerships. So, for instance, like in the PAMAfrica-SINDOFO consortium, there are individuals working together from different countries in Africa, working together also with industry, which is another issue which EDCTP had emphasized on. So when you have this strong network of scientists working together, it gives some sort of sustainability as well as proliferation of their capacity to other parts of the continent.
So, Professor Charles, going back to this relationship between North and South, and you described it very well. Of course, there should be some changes in the behavior of the funders. And how do you describe through all this time? Because we can see it in the field. Professor Charles, you remember that in the beginning, most of the coordinators of the recipient, as the coordinators of the projects, they were based in the North. And then slightly we start having the African coordinating some project. We start having some PhDs leading some of the projects, depending on the area of knowledge. So it means that at some point, the funders also, they incorporate on their procedures all these change, historical change. So how do you describe this?
Yeah, first of all, the bottom line there is capacity. In the past, quite often, our fellow scientists from the South used to wait. The idea, as I said earlier on, the ideas will come from the North, the funding will come from the North, and you're taken as a partner to join in the collaboration. Not only as a partner, but as a junior partner, I must emphasize. But once the capacity, then the Eusebios like you became into the play. They could come up with their own ideas, and things started changing. And I said before in earlier talks, in this paradigm shift, people started also thinking of changing the center of the gravity to the south, or switching the poles, whereby an individual in the South who knows the problem much better than their fellow scientists in the North came with ideas themselves. Okay, this is where we should go. This is what we should do. And this is changing now very often. But all this comes from trust. And I believe the underlying thing there really is a strong research capacity and self-belief. Now we have scientists like yourself who are believing, who even in the world they represent in very, very important committees, and they have ideas just like their northern partners, but now they have a voice and they can be heard. And that's why things are changing.
No, thanks. And sorry, Helen, I'll give you the floor. So in that line, the gender comes on board. And as Professor Charles, you know that in Africa, gender issues are very complex. When you come to ground, ladies and young students have to go to the farm when they start raining to accompany their parents to help them to produce food. And these reduce the proportion of ladies who continue in the school. But when we come to the top, we want to see the ladies leading in an equal proportion as male. So how this gender issue was taken within the EDCTP, how it should be improved, where the bottlenecks?
Yeah. First, we must remember, this is not confined to the African setting or the low and middle-income countries only. Even in the North, frankly speaking, if you look at the scientists, the higher you go in the hierarchy, the more male dominance you see. So this is a general problem. But of course, this is more acute in Africa because of some of the reasons we mentioned, male preference in parenthood, male preference in the way the governments and the people work. But I'm happy to say that EDCTP, right from the beginning, had applied a gender lens throughout. For instance, some of the KPIs, some of the indicators we normally access is how many publications are done by a female sex, how many scientists, how many research projects are led by the female gender, and so forth. So, and I think this is where we should continue working on. And if I have to plead to the community, the scientific community, the science leaders in the South, this is what they should keep on preaching all the time, because our governments always need to remind it. We should keep on talking about this, and this stems from right from the beginning. in terms of science education. There should be proactive recruiting of girls in science subjects, the so-called STEM subjects. And this is happening already in some parts of Africa, but I would like this to be really taken more seriously. And it is upon us, research scientists in the South, to advocate for this.
Thank you,
Helen,
Prof.
please.
Charles. Yeah, something very close to my heart, obviously, as a female scientist myself. But we're actually very lucky. Later in this symposium, we're going to hear from 2 female African scientists who are stepping into leadership positions. So it will be very interesting indeed to hear about their journey and the challenges and the support that they've received along their way. So we'll come back to them later, but Prof, I want to make the most of our time with you this morning. And I want you to imagine just for a moment that we're in, let's say, 2030, the year 2030. What would your vision be? How would you like to see research capacity changed within Africa in terms of leadership, equitable partnerships, strengthened capacity? If you could give us just a few thoughts of your vision for where we'll be then.
My vision is to see that the capacity for research is largely developed by the African authorities and African governments ourselves, because this capacity belongs to us. So it is from within that we should ensure that we fund the capacity. We invest on the capacity. And this way we also can direct where the investment needs to go. There are 3 areas where I know we are extremely deficient. One, in investment on the leadership, female leadership in science. And this is one area where our authorities should pay extra attention in the teaching of the stem cells for the child girl, and in encouraging women to go into science and science leadership. The other 2 areas are the earlier parts in the R&D chain, which is discovery. At the moment, most of the products that are being trialed in Africa are coming from Europe or America. So if we can invest on upstream research and infrastructure, that will be wonderful. And lastly, on downstream. We need to start manufacturing our own vaccines, our own drugs. And if we can achieve these 3 things by 2030, I'll be the happiest person alive. Thank you.
Wise words. Yeah, has to be driven from within as well as from without. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's very thought-provoking. Eusebio, do you want to add anything into the conversation?
Yeah. Professor Charles, do you think that your generation was much committed to the research than the young people, meaning our generation or the generation that are coming? Because when you see how, I mean, this is a probably very, very close thinking, but there's a trend of people to, when we had junior people working with us, we are by instinct we used to push them and thinking that they are not much committed, comparing with other generation and so on. And this is a trend which sometimes we tend to minimize the effort that used to be made by young generation on science. And second, looking back, which issue do you think that should be considered in order to make this new way to approach science as EDCP has done, to be sustainable, to be equitable, and with all these challenges, even considering gender, regions, and so on, level of development of the countries, because you cannot compare Kenya, I'm sorry, you cannot compare Mozambique probably with Ghana in terms of science. You cannot compare probably Kenya with Mozambique. There's some differences even across African countries. So what probably scientific community in Africa expect is that at some point, all these differences could be stable. Of course, there will be some levels of improving and so on. But which aspect do you think that should be considered in advance in order in the near future this stability and sustainability could be achieved in partnership between Europe and Africa and other regions of the globe?
I don't know. I mean, that's a very loaded question, Eusebio. First of all, about the different generation. Every generation will presume that our generation was much better than yours. But you're putting me in a fix here. If that is the case, then there's something wrong with our generation. We did not send out good genes or good vibes to make sure that there is sustainability and continuum. No, but I believe actually the current generation is much better because they are more equipped. I mean, we've got better infrastructure, we've got better networking and so forth. So they should be better than the previous generation for sure. But the question about dedication and all that is upon us now, the senior people who are going away, to ensure that those who are leaving behind, they have the same, because when sometimes you have things easier, you become lazy, but I hope this is not going to be the case. So, I mean, it's like if your father had a farm and he left you a farm, you should do much better as a farmer than when there was no land at all. So it should be the other way around. As to the question of African involvement, also there should be a political will. There have been a few coming from here and there about having general funds for research in Africa and so forth, or even national funds. I've mentioned in the slides there that, among other things, we should start now advocating strongly for research councils in Africa, so that, I mean, we fund our research, we fund capacity development, we build up the agenda for the research and so forth. I think this is already happening. We have some also even North-South cooperation in forming these research councils. But as I said before, the cry should come from within. It is from Africa that we should come up with the way forward for this.
Yeah. Helen, you want to come in?
I honestly don't think we can top what Prof has just said there. It has to come from within. I think those are very good closing thoughts to finish with, and allow us to move on and hear from some other colleagues involved with PAMAfrica and SINDOFO on their experiences of capacity development. Thank you, Professor Charles.
Thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you very much.